So dear students, today now we will learn about muscles of sole of foot. So if you see the sole of foot, there are like muscles present in the hand which are called as intrinsic muscles. So there are 18 intrinsic muscles and 4 extrinsic tendon in the sole of the foot. So the muscles of the sole we can describe it in layers. So we can divide it into 4 layers. So we will start discussing from superficial to deep. So the muscles of sole are chiefly concerned with the supporting of the arches of foot, and the long and short muscles of the foot act as synergists. Synergist means helpers. So they act with the other structures to maintain the arches of the foot. And talking about the neurovascular plane in the sole, there are 2 neurovascular planes between the muscle layers of the sole. Superficial neurovascular plane, it is between the first and second layers. Deep neurovascular plane is between the third and fourth layers. In the superficial neurovascular plane, it lies in the trunks of medial and lateral plantar nerves and arteries, whereas in the deep vascular plane, we have got deep branches of lateral plantar nerve and arteries. So to understand the origin insertion of these foot muscles, we have to study the layout of different bones in the plantar aspect of the foot. So in osteology, we know that posterior most heel bone is the calcaneum, and superior to it, which doesn't give any muscular attachment, is the talus. We are seeing the foot, that is the sole of the foot, by inverting. So what we are seeing is the lowermost structure as the superficial structure, that is the skin covering the sole, then deep to it, like that we are going to move further. And in front of the talus, this is navicular, which is present in front of the talus, and this one is the cuboid, and this little bone what is shown here is the medial cuneiform, and the bone which lies deep to this muscle will be the intermediate cuneiform, and the one which is hiding beneath it is the lateral cuneiform. So the 3 cuneiform bones will be here, 1, 2 and 3, and this is the navicular, which is boat-like bone, and then cuboid, this is the cuboid, and rest is the calcaneum, and the one superior to the calcaneum is the talus. So these are the tarsal bones, and this is the first metatarsal, which goes to the great toe. This is the second, third, fourth and fifth. And these are the phalanges. We have got proximal phalanx, distal phalanx in the great toe. In the other toes, proximal, middle and distal. Proximal, middle and distal for each toe. So this is a basic idea of skeleton of foot showing the bones. So let's see the muscle attachments of muscles which are present in the sole of the foot. So the muscles present in the first layer are flexor digitorum brevis, which goes to the tendons. It splits into 4 tendons. This is brevis muscle, and the other 2 muscles which are present in the first layer are abductor hallucis and abductor digiti minimi. Hallucis goes to the great toe. This is abductor digiti minimi. So these 3 muscles are present in the first layer. So they cover the whole of the sole. Let's see the second layer muscles. The second layer contains flexor digitorum accessorius. This is flexor digitorum accessorius muscle. And there are 4 lumbricals, we can see, which are attached to the tendons. These are the lumbricals. And 2 tendons, one is flexor digitorum longus tendon and tendon of flexor hallucis longus. Here flexor digitorum longus tendon is shown. This is flexor digitorum longus tendon. Moving on to the third layer. Third layer we have got flexor hallucis brevis muscle. Hallucis means the great toe. So it is a shorter muscle which helps in the flexion of the great toe. Next is the flexor digiti minimi brevis. The other side is next is the adductor hallucis, which helps in the adduction. So here we can see adductor hallucis muscle. So they are confined to the metatarsal region of the sole, and two of these muscles act as on the big toe, that is adductor hallucis and flexor hallucis brevis. They act on the big toe, and whereas the flexor digiti minimi, that is a brevis which goes to the little toe, that one acts over the flexion of the little toe. Fourth layer is the interossei layer, where we have got 3 plantar interossei and 4 dorsal interossei. So these 3 are the plantar interossei. And the 4 dorsal interossei, these are the interossei, and we have got other tendons like tendon of tibialis posterior, tendon of peroneus longus. So these structures are present in the deeper fourth layer, and they fill up the gap between the intermetatarsal spaces. So the interossei fill up the gap between the space between the intermetatarsal spaces. So starting with the first layer muscle is the flexor digitorum brevis, which resembles flexor digitorum superficialis in the hand, and the origin of flexor digitorum brevis, it is from the medial tubercle of calcaneum. So we can see its origin is from the medial tubercle of calcaneum. And let's see how it is getting inserted. It forms 4 tendons for the lateral 4 toes, and each tendon splits into 2 splits opposite to the base of the proximal phalanges. So you can see opposite to the base of the proximal phalanx, each one splits into 2 tendons and 2 slips. It slips, and each slip, they allow the passage of this gap between the 2 slips. It allows the passage of long flexor tendons, and finally they get inserted into the margin of the middle phalanges of lateral 4 toes. So margins of the middle phalanx. So this is the middle phalanx. So all middle phalanges it goes, and this is supplied by medial plantar nerve. So the nerve supply is by medial plantar nerve, which is a branch of the tibial nerve having the root value S2, S3. As the name suggests, the action of flexor digitorum brevis, it acts as a flexors of lateral 4 toes. So the next muscle which is present in the first layer is the abductor hallucis. Abductor hallucis lie along the medial border of the foot, and it gets origin from the medial tubercle of the calcaneum. So here is the calcaneum. So it gets origin from the medial tubercle of the calcaneum, and also partly from the flexor retinaculum, and its tendon fuses with the medial portion of the tendons of flexor hallucis brevis for the common insertion. So they get common insertion to the medial side of the base of the proximal phalanx. So this is the proximal phalanx of the great toe. So it gets inserted here to the base of the proximal phalanx along the medial border. Nerve supply of abductor hallucis is medial plantar nerve. Medial plantar nerve, the root value is S2 and S3. and it also helps along it as it blends along with the flexor hallucis. So it also acts as a flexor of the big toe. So it helps in the flexion as well as abduction of the big toe. Next, about the abductor digiti minimi. Abductor digiti minimi lies along the lateral border of the foot. So it gets origin from the medial and lateral tubercles of the calcaneum. So we can say it gets origin from here, medial as well as the lateral tubercles of the calcaneum, and runs along the lateral side. It is along the lateral border of the foot. Its tendons fuses with the tendons of the flexor digiti minimi brevis and has a common insertion which gets inserted to the lateral side of the base of the proximal phalanx. So this is the proximal phalanx. It gets inserted to the lateral side of the base of the proximal phalanx. As it is on the lateral side, the nerve supply of abductor digiti minimi is lateral plantar nerve. Lateral plantar nerve, the root value is S2, S3. And abductor digiti minimi acts as an abductor of the lateral toe, and also it helps in the flexion. So it acts as a flexor as well as abductor of the lateral toe. Moving on to the next layer, that is the second layer in the sole of the foot. The first muscle is flexor digitorum accessorius. It gets origin by two heads, the medial head and the lateral head. We can see here, this is the lateral head, the other head is the medial head. Lateral head gets origin from the lateral tubercle of the calcaneum. Medial head gets origin from the medial tubercle of the calcaneum. And two heads, they merge, they unite at an acute angle and gets inserted to the tendon of flexor digitorum longus. So this is the tendon of flexor digitorum longus, and we can see the muscle gets inserted along into the tendon of flexor digitorum longus muscle. So flexor digitorum accessorius, the main function of it is flexion of the toes. So it is a accessory muscle which act as the flexion of the toes as well as flexion of tarso-metatarsal joints. So that is about the flexor digitorum accessorius muscle. The other muscles which we can see in this layer are the lumbricals. There are 4 lumbricals. The 4 lumbricals, they are numbered from medial to the lateral side. So this is the first lumbrical. Here is the second, third and fourth. So these lumbricals, they are along with the tendon of flexor digitorum longus and flexor hallucis longus. So they are along the flexor digitorum longus and flexor hallucis longus muscle. So if you see the insertion of these lumbricals, the tendons pass forward on the medial side metatarsophalangeal joints of the lateral 4 toes. So lateral 4 toes basis proximal phalanges, it goes and gets inserted. And nerve supply of the lumbricals, the first by the medial plantar nerve. The first lumbrical is by the medial plantar nerve. So the first lumbrical, it is supplied by the medial plantar nerve. Second, third and fourth are supplied by lateral plantar nerves. Second, third, fourth, they are all supplied by lateral plantar nerve branches. The lumbricals, the action of the lumbricals is extension of the toes at the interphalangeal joints. So moving on to the third layer, there are 2 muscles, flexor hallucis brevis and flexor digiti minimi brevis. So if you see the origin of flexor hallucis brevis, it arises by Y, like a Y-shaped tendon, the plantar surface of the cuboid bone. So it gets origin from the plantar surface of the cuboid bone and medial limb of lateral cuneiform bone. So medial lip is from the lateral cuneiform bone and lateral is from the plantar surface of cuboid. The muscle belly splits into 2 parts and each part gives rise to tendon which contains the sesamoid bone. So each part we can see it contains a sesamoid bones before its insertion to the base of proximal phalanx of great toe. So finally it gets inserted to each side of the base of the proximal phalanx of the great toe, and it is supplied by the medial plantar nerve S2 and S3. So nerve supply is by medial plantar nerve, root value S2, S3. Next, about the flexor digiti minimi brevis, the origin is from the fifth metatarsal bone, and it forms a narrow tendon which blends with the abductor digiti minimi. So it gets origin from the fifth metatarsal bone, base of the fifth metatarsal bone. It gets origin and inserts as a narrow tendon to the base of the proximal phalanx. So this is the base of the proximal phalanx. It gets inserted. Nerve supply is it is on the lateral side. So flexor digiti minimi brevis is by lateral plantar nerve having the root value S2, S3. So that is about the flexor digiti minimi brevis. So this is all about the flexor hallucis brevis and flexor digiti minimi brevis. So here is the next muscle is the adductor hallucis, which is present in the third layer. Adductor hallucis arises by two heads, the large oblique head which arises from the base of the second, third, fourth metatarsal bone. So here is the second, which is hiding below the muscle. Here is the third, and this is the fourth metatarsal bones. And the small transverse head which gets from the plantar ligaments, which gets its origin from the plantar ligaments of the metatarsophalangeal joints. So here are the plantar ligaments of metatarsophalangeal joint of third, fourth and fifth toes. So this is the transverse head. Talking about its insertion, the common tendon of both the heads fuses with the lateral tendon of flexor hallucis brevis by a composite tendon, forming a composite tendon on the lateral side of the base of proximal phalanx of big toe. So it gets inserted to the base of the proximal phalanx of the big toe. So that is about the adductor hallucis, and adductor hallucis action is to adduction of the big toe, and it is supplied by D branch of lateral plantar nerve. So lateral plantar nerve supplies adductor hallucis, deeper branch of lateral plantar nerve having the root value S2, S3, and adductor hallucis maintains the arches of the foot. Coming to the interossei muscles, there are dorsal interossei and palmar interossei, which forms the fourth layer. So the dorsal interossei muscle are 4 in number and lies between the metatarsal bones, and you can see they are bipinnate muscles. So these bipinnate muscles, they arise from the adjacent side of the metatarsal bone of first to fifth. So this is the first one, second, third, fourth and fifth. So adjacent side of the metatarsal, shaft of the metatarsals, and including a little part of the base, it gets its origin. And first on the medial side of the proximal phalanx of second toe. So the first will go to the medial side of the proximal phalanx, second on the lateral side of the proximal phalanx, third goes to the lateral side of the third phalanx, fourth goes to the lateral side of the third phalanx. So that is the insertion. So dorsal interossei, we can just remember they are 4 in number and lies between the metatarsal bones, and they form the part of the fourth layer of the sole of the foot, and they are all supplied by lateral plantar nerve. The nerve supply is by lateral plantar nerve with the root value S2, S3. So to remember the action of dorsal interossei, we can say dab, just like how we learnt the dorsal interossei of the upper limb. So dorsal interossei dab means ab. Ab means abductor. So they help in the abduction of the digits. So that is the main action. Apart from abduction of the digits, also helps in the flexion of the metatarsophalangeal joints. Flexion of phalangeal joints. Next about plantar interossei. The plantar interossei are 3 in number and lies rather below the metatarsals, and they are unipinnate muscle. We can see they get origin only on one side. They are not bipinnate. They arise from the medial sides of the metatarsals from 3rd to 5th. So this is 3rd, 4th and 5th. Medial side of the 3rd to 5th metatarsal bones, and tendons are arranged on the adductor sides of the toes, medial side of the bases of the phalanges, and they are all supplied by the, so tendons you can see they get inserted to the medial side bases of the phalanges. If you see their insertion, they are all unipinnate. After their origin, they run towards the medial side bases of the phalanges of 3rd and to 5th digits, and they are all supplied by lateral plantar nerve. So lateral plantar nerve having the root value S2, S3. And the action of plantar interossei, it helps in adduction. So you can remember as PAD. Plantar interossei for adduction of 2nd, 3rd, 4th digits. That is 2nd, 3rd, 4th digits, that is toes, they help in adduction, and also helps in the flexion of metatarsophalangeal joints. So this is all about the 4 layers present in the sole of the foot. So we completed layer by layer, exposing every muscle and its attachments and its nerve supply and action. Thank you.